If you're like me, you've probably gotten frustrated before when embroidering small lettering. So today I'm going to share 7 tips for improving the quality on your small lettering. So I just want to remind you guys before we get started, if you have any questions at all throughout the video, feel free to leave a comment and we'll get back to you with an answer. And I also wanted to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed so far. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe now just by clicking the subscribe button right here, and also click on the little bell icon so you can get a notification when we post new videos. So we're going to start with the fundamentals, and that's tip number 1, and that is to increase your stabilization. So if you are normally stabilizing with 1 sheet of cutaway, you might need 2. So for instance, here, I have this very small lettering down here, and you can see that with cutaway, it kept the words very flat and stable. If you didn't use a very stable stabilizer, here we use 2 sheets. If you didn't use a very stable stabilizer, stabilizer. But anyway, if you didn't use a stable stabilizer, you can see how the words just start moving around. It's not flat and it doesn't look as nice as here. Number 2, I'm just going to jump into one of the very most important takeaways from this video, and that is using specialty thread. So you probably think you can get away with using your size 40 standard weight thread, but if you use your 60 weight specialty thread, especially for letters that are 4 millimeters and under, you're going to see a huge difference. Your design is just going to come out much cleaner. So keep in mind that a size 60 is a lighter thread weight, even though it is a larger number, so don't get confused. The size 60 is actually finer, so it'll help get those details a lot better. So this leads me to number 3, and that is to change the size of your needle. So we know that if you're changing the size of your thread, you should also be changing the size of your needle, because it will be a finer thread, so you can use a smaller needle eye, and you're gonna want to because you want to puncture smaller holes into this fabric to get very clean stitches to come out. So typically we'll use our size 75-11 needle for most projects, and that might be okay if your lettering is above 5 millimeters, I would say. Under that, I would say go down to 70-10. If it's 4 millimeters, 70-10 for sure. And if it's 3 millimeters, then go down to your 65-9. Number 4, and this also relates to your very, very small letters like you see here. I would say this is about 3 millimeters. So here we use aqua top topping, and this was really going to help those stitches come out and not get lost in the fabric. So as you know, this is a very stretchy fabric, so you should also be using a ballpoint needle. Sometimes it's not necessary, but I do recommend using a 65-9 ballpoint if you're going to embroider on a stretchy fabric and it's going to be a very small size like this. It's about 3 millimeters. So I would definitely go with a 65-9 ballpoint needle if you're doing this exact project. So another thing that you can do to keep the stitches from sinking into the fabric is actually creating a stitch, kind of like a background stitch in the same color as the fabric, and that's going to give a foundation for your stitches to lay on. So you can do both. You can use your aqua top and you can use your foundation, but typically once you have those stitches, then you should be fine and you should be able to stitch on a good base, and that will also avoid puckering as you see. Oh, and this one. Number 6 is to slow down your machine. A lot of people forget to do this when they're embroidering their small lettering because they think they're just embroidering flats so they can run at 800 or high speed. I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend slowing down your machine to get the very best quality. So something to look out for is that your stitch length cannot be any less than 1 millimeter. That's already going very, very fine. Generally, if your stitches are smaller than, say, your needle or your thread, that's going to be impossible to embroider. So try to keep it above 1 millimeter. So if you do have the ability to choose your fonts, I would recommend choosing a basic block font like we chose down here in this very small lettering. And that's because the serifs are not going to show up as clearly. And I'm going to show you, serifs are these little things right here, for those who don't know. So it's kind of like the little extensions on the end of your lettering. So that's why it's a lot easier to embroider these, because the serifs will come out kind of like a satin stitch in the reverse direction. So as you can see, this satin stitch is going horizontal and this one is going vertical. For small lettering, you should look out for your digitizer or if you're digitizing yourself, to digitize it so that the letter is actually, the serif is actually going in the same direction. So I don't know if you can see here, but the serif is actually going in the same direction, and that's going to help decrease the stitch count. So mainly just remind your digitizer to digitize for small lettering, which means that they will do it accordingly and not put unnecessary points in your garments. So all in all, before attempting to do your small lettering, you want to first see if you can kind of edit some of the design elements to make it a little bit more friendly for your embroidery machine. So keep in mind what I said about the fonts, and also remind your digitizer that you are embroidering for small lettering, so that would require a lower stitch count and a lighter density. All right, so these are 7 tips that you need to keep in mind when embroidering small lettering. I promise that they will make all the difference, and these are just minor tweaks that you need to make that some embroiderers probably didn't know about before and learned the hard way. So for those of you who haven't tried it yet, I want you guys to do this before you attempt it. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, please make sure to hit the thumbs up button below and to subscribe to our channel. And I also want to take the time to remind you guys to join our Facebook community, Embroidery and Custom Apparel Mastery, where you can chat with me and thousands of other embroiderers in there, ask any questions you have. And if you're an expert yourself, go ahead and share some of your best tips. So I have linked the community below. So again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you back here next time.